Hello, today we're here with two people, representatives of Renaissance Ranch. Why don't you guys go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Sure, you bet. Hi, this is Rick, and I'm Christine Dixon, owners of Renaissance Ranch with our two sons, Preston and Tyson Dixon. Renaissance Ranch has been around for over 20 years. We are an addiction recovery treatment center for adult men. We have campus in Utah and in Idaho, residential, outpatient, and sober living homes. And we treat the whole family system. We are passionate about helping the whole family because everyone in the family is affected by addiction. So we are so grateful and excited to share with you some of our resources that we have. In fact, we have 9 classes a week for families, and 7 of them are open to the public. So it's really, really cool because there's not a lot of help out there for family members. And as we know, addiction is chronic, it's progressive, and it is fatal. So there's a lot of trauma with the family. So thank you so much for having us. We're really excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to learn from you guys and understand from your experience how everything works.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Yeah. All right, so I want to go into one of our questions is how does addiction impact family? How does it?
That is a really, really good question. And it depends on the perspective. Of course, we can only speak from our personal perspective as parents, but it's developmental trauma. It's so hard. It was the hardest thing as a mother I've ever been through. Addiction is sadly, it's very chronic, just like I said, chronic, progressive, and it can be fatal. And so that brings up just so much trauma and a lot of grief and loss because you have dreams for your children and how they want to turn, how you want your life to be as a family as you grow older together. And when you see that those dreams are not happening, it puts you into a lot of grief, a lot of just a ton of fear, sadness. I know for my husband, a lot of, sometimes some anger, a lot of negative emotion brings up a lot of codependency from the fear because it's so scary. You get to a point where you feel like, for me, I felt like they're walking towards a cliff and I couldn't stop it. So it was just super scary. We didn't know where to go until we finally found addiction recovery 12-step meetings that were offered by our church. So we start going to these 12-step groups with a lot of people with addiction. Right off the bat, found a lot of hope, recognized that we're not alone. And it was awesome. Our family started to heal and get into recovery from that first day. Yeah.
So have you seen and can families and relationships overcome addiction? Or is once that bridge burned, is it burned? Or can they rebuild that bridge?
With our family, we had 2 boys that were using together heroin, and we about lost them. And as a result, we had to excuse them from our home, and the relationships were all but shattered. And we thought this could never be normal again. This could never be mended ever because of what had happened. But what we found is it can be. Trust can be redeveloped. Here are 2 boys now are clean and sober, almost 15 years. Both of them have families of their own. Both are doing extremely well. In fact, one of them is a CEO of the Renaissance Ranch. The other is a COO of the Renaissance Ranch. So there's great hope in recovery, and relationships can come back together. In fact, I look at our boys now, we're stronger as a father and son team in our relationship as a family and in business than we ever were before. So
right. So when you actually get into recovery as a family, it's like diabetes or cancer. If your son had diabetes, you would want to learn about insulin. You would want to learn and become educated on how to help your child with diabetes. Addiction is a brain disease. It's a midbrain disease. And we know that today from science. And so we know how to put the disease into remission. However, it takes a lot of support. And according to the National Institute of Drug Abuse, they did a nationwide study with families with addiction. And they found that if the family members, if the addicted person has a support, an advocate for them, it just takes one. But one family member who's willing to learn about addiction and be that support person, that increases the likelihood of long-term sobriety by 80%. And in our, hundreds and hundreds of people attending our family classes, those clients of ours who have family members showing up who are learning this recovery information, it's blessing their lives because they're getting support for themselves. They're learning that fine line between what's helpful and hurtful, but they're also giving their client or their loved one an 80% higher likelihood of
Well,
long-term
and that's
recovery.
why family members really need to become involved. When our sons became addicted, well, I didn't want, I'd had it and I was frustrated. There was a lot of anger, resentment, and why are they doing this to me? And I just had it. We learned though, as we got into our third treatment center, which was the Renaissance Ranch, and family classes, that the best thing that we could do as parents and as family members is to work on our own emotional state, our own recovery, if you will, not recovery from drugs or alcohol necessarily, but recovery from the emotional trauma that we've been through, and become educated and know what our part is or isn't in this.
Yeah, how to help it in an appropriate way too, because we were so codependent and we were actually contributing to that negative cycle.
She talks about negative cycle. What the core center of all addiction is shame. Shame is different than guilt. Guilt is I did something wrong. Shame is I am wrong.
Yeah,
I'm just a piece of
and
work.
there's no hope for me.
Yeah,
right?
and so we needed to learn our part. Were we shaming? How are we shaming? And I was a big shamer, thinking that would motivate them. But when I was done, they just wanted to go use and numb out, because an addict will use their drug of choice to numb out these feelings of shame.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's great hope.
That's right.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to share, we do have some resources that I wanted to share if I could. We have facilitators. We call these family education groups. They're support groups for family members. And we have we have 7 a week open to the public from different perspectives. And our facilitators have all had addiction in the family system. We have the spouse perspective family classes, and our facilitators are really, truly amazing. I mean, they've been working they're recovery rock stars. They've been working recovery within the marriage for years and years, give a lot of people hope. And we work the 12 steps with the family members, just as, back in the 1930s, when the founders of Alcoholics Anonymous came up with these 12 steps, they discovered that the family members need the same 12 steps, because we're healing from, matters of the heart, a lot of, like we said, a lot of a negative emotion or fear or uncertainty about the future. And it just puts a big strain on the relationship. So we have the person with the addiction and the family member also, they're all working the 12 steps so the families can heal together. And we feel like our family today is so much stronger than it was. We just didn't have the tools,
You might mention about
principles and tools.
The different classes, the youth class as well.
Okay, so we have spouse perspective classes, parent perspective classes. In fact, let me share my screen with you just really quickly, and I'll show you. If you go to renaissanceranch.com, got to spell Renaissance right. That's the hard part. But if you can see here, we have these free online family classes. And as you scroll down, oh, shoot. Can you see the screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
Can you?
Yeah.
Okay, if you scroll down, you can see that we have podcasts. We have all of our online classes. You click right here to get right into our schedule, and we have past webinars. We've done a lot of fantastic family webinars with multiple people on both perspectives, the addiction and the family codependent perspective.
I just might mention on the classes.
Yes.
One of them is a wives only.
Yes.
And it's very special in that a lot of wives really struggle when their husband is in addiction. They feel totally alone. Well, we have a class where 4 women, change out and teach that class, all of which have had husbands, not only in addiction, that has gone through the Renaissance Ranch.
Yeah.
It is powerful.
They are amazing. And so I'm so sorry, I had to cut you off. So sorry about that. But the wives group, I have to say, a lot of times with addiction, there's men struggling with pornography and sex addiction as well. So then we're dealing with betrayal trauma. And so it's nice for the women to go, they need support just as much as the men need support. So it's so nice for them to be in a safe place where they can talk about, their feelings and work these steps. It's very positive. Our classes are solution-based. So we never get into, there's never negative crosstalk or gossip about about their, their loved ones. So very positive.
I might
Sorry, I gotta say one more thing. So there's the
she's so excited. You can tell.
Yeah,
I just can't get a word
so
in.
we have 2 parent classes and a couple spouse classes, and we have a women's group. We have another working the step, 2 noon classes. Most of our classes at 6:30 at night. And then we have a youth group that is fantastic because our kids are struggling. They don't know how to navigate addiction in the family. So for ages 8 to 17, we have a youth group taught by 3 kids that have been going to Alateen for 4 years. And their mothers right off camera to make sure everything's in sync. But these kids are learning recovery now at a young age, and they're learning the tools of how they can cope and how they can be strong, and learning that really the only person that they can control, cure, or fix is themselves. So
Yeah,
we're
I was
excited.
just going to say that
me
that
show
you
you.
can tell how this has changed her life. It's changed our life as a family. Christy and I teach the one Wednesday night. It's open to the public. It's every Wednesday night at 6:30. Come join us. If you're hurting, many parents, many grandparents, sisters, brothers of addicts,
And
moms and dads.
grandparents.
If you're hurting or frustrated, if you're just sick and tired of being sick and tired, you don't know what to do, these classes will help you learn what to do when you don't know what to do. And they're all Zoom. So you can be going down the road 60, 70 miles an hour, click on Zoom, put your phone on your seat and listen in and be a part of us, or at home on your computer.
Right. You don't have to do this alone anymore. Like, we felt so alone. We didn't know if we were helping or hurting. So come and join with us and learn from the people in the classes who are a little farther down the path of recovery than you are. And if you're honest, open, and willing, you'll grow yourself so much and feel so much hope and positive momentum. And it's a faith-based program. When you get into those 12 steps, it's about finding that personal spirituality defined as what gives you meaning and purpose in your life. And so a lot of those steps deal with higher power and are very faith-based, but we teach them that it's got to be the higher power of your understanding, So it does include the spirituality piece, which the research is also showing today that spirituality creates a lot of resiliency. And when hard things happen, people bounce back.
Can I just say
lots
as
of
well,
good tools.
in addiction, a lot of hearts are hurting. A lot of relationships are torn apart. There's what's called codependency. And codependency is this: when my addict is doing good, I'm doing good. When my addict is not doing good, I fall apart. That's basically codependency. These classes help us understand, deal with, and work through codependent tendencies, things like enabling, how you set boundaries, what to do and what not to do, what true charity is versus codependency. These things help bond and bring back relationships when there are struggling things. And the other thing I was just going to say is that you learn what to do here. In fact, a lot of times people say, well, if my son is using in my basement, what do I do? Those are some things that we talk about.
Right.
The principle is, I will support you in your recovery, but I cannot support you in your addiction.
Yeah, we need to learn how to work on this together as a team. And you can call Renaissance Ranch at 855. I think. Oh, you know what? I should have probably stopped sharing my screen a long time ago. But if you can see the screen now, this is our homepage, renaissanceranch.com, or I'll take you to renaissanceranch.net. But the phone number, 855-736-7262. We have a mental health counselor waiting to talk with you and just for free and give you some ideas of how to help your addicted loved one, how to help them get ready for treatment, how to help them, if you're a family member, how to support them. He'll hook you up with our classes, and it's all free. We just want to help families because we know that there's not a lot of help out there for the family member. So please come and join our classes.
Many of you are wondering, gosh, my addict has been in addiction for so long. Is there really hope, help, and healing? We have seen hundreds and hundreds of addicts that have been in addiction for years and years, alcoholic, both behavioral,
Pornography. Mhm.
other kind of substances that are able to heal and bring great joy in their life and their family. Do not give up hope. The Renaissance Ranch is a special sacred place of healing,
Brotherhood.
and it's a brotherhood that's totally incredible.
And our
There is
alumni
great
groups
hope.
are huge. We have a huge alumni brotherhood,
Yes.
which is very important because you're only in treatment for, a few months, right? It's the aftercare that's so important, that you're hooked into a network of people that are wanting to stay sober, because you need new friends, you need new community.
But Lindsay, we can keep talking forever. Are we out of time, or we got some more? Do you got some more questions, or?
You have a question that I was wondering about. It's how do I be supportive to someone with an addiction recovery, but not enabling? How do you?
Yeah, that's a good
support
question.
and
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's nice to understand the definition of enabling. That is when I do something for someone else that they can and they should be able to do for themselves. However,
That's enabling.
because addiction is a brain disease, if they are in active addiction, their frontal cortex is shut down and their limbic system, or their midbrain amygdala, is running the show. They're going to need appropriate help, just like that diabetic or a person with cancer needs treatment. They're going to need help. So they need an advocate. But at the same time, with that being said, sometimes when you're in active addiction, the only thing that state of mind can really recognize is consequences. So we want to really be careful, but we want to allow the consequences as much as possible for them to feel the pain of those choices and help them recognize. It doesn't take away their responsibility or their accountability because it's a disease, but if they feel the weight of those consequences, then they'll be more likely to get in. But we don't do anything huge, like we did not kick our boys out per se. We still love them. They still came over for dinners, Sunday dinners. We still were connected and love them, but we just said, hey, we love you too much. We want you here. We want you here. We want you in recovery and all of that. If you choose to keep using, you're welcome to live wherever you want to live. But in learning how to set boundaries, and that's why it's so important for family members also to get involved, because we have to set these boundaries so they can start feeling those consequences.
Lindsay, I'm just thinking about your question. There's two things that make addiction worse. One is using, and that's obvious, but number two is enabling. A lot of times a family member will think that they're helping and they're really enabling. In other words, they're doing their wash, they're giving them food, they're letting them live.
The cycle keeps going on and on and on because the addict doesn't realize
they're letting them live in the basement, and they're using in the basement, and basically they're dying slowly. Here's a real key. Until the pain of the consequence is greater than the pain of recovery, they will not go into recovery. If there's an addict living in your home, maybe a son, and he's getting all of his food, or he's not paying rent, and he's not really having to work, he's not feeling the consequences, he's going to continue, and in his addict mind, if you will, think everything's fine. And that's what continues that type of addiction.
And we have to be so careful, though. This is why, because a lot of times with addiction, the majority of the time there's mental health issues that the addiction will bring on the mental health. And luckily, if they get into recovery, a lot of that mental health will slowly go away. For some people, no. But this is why we've got to be knowledgeable as family members and get the education and get the information we need so that we can help our loved ones make good choices. And we started, as we became educated, we spoke with our sons with great love. Hey, this is a brain disease, but there's hope. You can get better. Let's start going to these 12-step meetings. There's so many 12-step meetings in the community that you can access. AA, NA for those on prescription pain drugs. There's 12-step meetings in your churches now.
So let me say something, just in closing, something that I never understood. And I was so frustrated with the boys. I just say, quit. Can't you see you're messing up your lives? Well, Christy's mentioned many times it's a brain disease, which it is. What that means, just real short and sweet, is that there's two parts of the brain that addiction affects, whether it's behavioral, like pornography, gambling, or it's chemical, alcohol, drugs, etc. There's two parts of the brain. There's the frontal cortex right here, which are our values, our morals, our personality. This is where we look at a calendar, we can project out and make appointments. This is who we are right here. Our midbrain is the fight or flight part of our brain. It doesn't know about
Survival.
morals or values. It doesn't care. What happens in addiction is the midbrain trumps or shuts down the frontal cortex. That's why an addict looks like they have no values, morals, looks like they're a cheat, a thief, because the midbrain's running the show. It looks really like they're a terrible person. What treatment does is help deal with the causes and conditions, why that's happened, and how to bring them out of the midbrain back into their frontal cortex and manage that addiction. Just like a diabetic has to manage his diabetes, a drug addict can and needs to learn how to manage that, and it works.
Yeah,
A lot of success.
it really does. But the addiction is just a symptom. The issues of why they've turned to a coping mechanism of alcohol or whatever it might be is there's underlying causes and conditions that we have to get down to, and it's not a quick fix. But there's hope, and as they start coming and learning from the other guys, they get down to those underlying causes and conditions. They get vulnerable. They learn how to talk about their feelings and their emotions and be able to express their needs. Men are socially conditioned to not share emotion. They learn that at a very young age, crying, trying to play football, and the coaches, tell him, don't be a sissy, don't be a wimp. So men are very shut down. And boy, when they can learn to share their feelings and their emotions, wow, it's a game changer.
That's why they call addiction the feelings disease.
Yeah.
An addict wants to numb out his feelings through his drug of choice because he doesn't want to feel anymore.
Right.
And let me just try to get inside your heart, those of you who are hurting. I'm thinking of several recovering addicts that's come through the facility, one of which now is working with the Renaissance Ranch. He went through 13 different treatment centers, never having success, having prison time, and really struggling for many, many years. As he came through Renaissance Ranch, it was a different experience. Ours is a spiritual based program, not a religious based, but rather
Faith-based.
a spiritual faith-based. They need to understand how a higher power can help do for them what they cannot do for themselves. Many come in and they're not interested in God. They're not interested in religion. They do not have a higher power, and that's okay. We validate them and are able to work with that
or they've
individual
had religious trauma
as well.
So we have to work through that.
And so there is great hope. Do not give up hope. And if you're struggling, well, I don't know how to get my addict into any type of treatment, they're not interested. Well, give us a call and we'll give you an outline of some things that you can do to help bring that closer to happen.
Yeah. And just on the family side, really quickly, I'm thinking of another family that their son, they had five kids go through addiction, and they were in over 12 different treatment centers with all the kids, but they never knew as parents that they were supposed to get involved in recovery. And so when they started coming, they're like, this is a whole new world for us. We didn't know that we were part of this cycle, that we were contributing, with the shaming stuff. That's just one example. But now the whole family is like shifted. The whole family is transformed. They're all doing so much better. There's so much more appropriate communication in the family and support. And they are like our biggest fans. We love them so much. But it's just an example of a typical family that we just don't know what we don't know. And there's no blame in recovery. We're all doing the best we can. And it's a lot of it's very generational. A lot of these patterns come down for generations and generations. And so we stop that. We stop that with treatment and recovery. And as family members, we can have a whole new dynamic for our posterity.
Our message is a message of hope, great hope for the addict, yes, but also for the family members. The family members many times need treatment and healing just as much as the addict. They're a lot of times forgotten, the family member is. And that's what we're all about, is healing the whole family, healing relationships, helping relationships come back together that are just shattered. But they both need to engage, both the addict in recovery, but the family member as well.
Absolutely.
And that's what our family classes are all about. And when I can get a word in on our class Wednesday nights, I mean, it's awesome. But you guys, we have fun together. She's just been so excited about doing this, and
So
I just love her to death. You can see with her popping brown eyes
Oh my goodness.
how wonderful
Thank
she
you.
is.
Do you have any more questions for us?
No, I think that's all my questions. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and experience with us and letting people know out there are resources that they can access and there is
Yeah.
hope. Thank
Yeah,
you.
just go to the website, renaissanceranch.com, click on the family tab, you'll get all the information. So,
Thanks, Lindsay. Appreciate your
or
time.
just call Lane. He'll talk you through how to help your loved one find treatment or help, So a
Thank
lot
you.
of hope out there. So thank you.